Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today somebody has given me a donation deck to play, a Dark Depths deck that's a little bit out of my comfort zone, and this is the sort of green-white Depths deck. So, quite a lot to get into on this one because we've got a whole bunch of singletons. The name of the game for this deck is we are kind of like a mid-rangey deck with a big tutor box, which does include the Dark Depths combo. So we have a lot of lands to tutor using both Knight of the Reliquary and Elvish Reclaimer, as well as crop rotation. So we're finding Wastelands, finding Dryad Arbors, Boseijus, Karakas, Maze of Ith. Big fan of Maze of Ith at the moment. Bojuka Bog, again, good to hate on people doing graveyard stuff right now. Sejiri Steppe to protect our big guy or one of our knights. Echoing Deeps to then get back a Bojuka Bog. So it kind of gives us another Bojuka Bog. So we can have our Bojuka Bog off of the Reclaimer, and then on the second wave of graveyard stuff, we sacrifice this, go get the Echoing Deeps, which then is a Bojuka Bog, and we get the ability all over again. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We also have some Flagstones which you can play and then sack to things like Reclaimer to then increase our total land count, which is quite nice. So a whole bunch of lands to tutor for and like 12 cards to tutor for them. But then we've also got this little creature package. So we've got Green Sun Zenith in here, which often is just going to be finding us Reclaimer or Knight of the Reliquary. But sometimes we're going to want to dip into like an Outland Liberator to blow something up, or some Endurances to hit on the graveyard a bit more. Sylvan Safekeeper to protect our creatures. Also, Sylvan Safekeeper, I don't like it in turbo decks, but in a deck like this where we've got a lot of redundant lands here, so we have more lands going on. We have Life from the Loam to recur them. We're playing a slower game. We've got Flagstones too. It makes a lot more sense to play a Sylvan Safekeeper in a deck like this, and we can just tutor for it with the Zenith. Obviously, we can tutor for this Dryad Arbor as well. Then there is also this Gaddock Teeg. So this does shut off our Green Sun Zeniths. But every time we're tutoring for our Gaddock Teeg, it's going to do so much damage to our opponent in comparison that it should be really sweet. I have seen people playing Collector Ouphe in the main deck instead, and I think they both do similar-ish jobs. Like this is going to stop Beseech the Mirror and that sort of jazz. Whereas will stop people casting the One Ring and stuff, whereas Collector Ouphe can stop them once the One Ring's in play, but isn't going to stop some lines that your opponent can do with like Burning Wishes or whatever. So, there's pros and cons to both of these. And because we're running 3 Mox Diamond, I can see why we got the Teegs in the main. We also are a Swords to Plowshares deck, because why not? Like, it's the best removal in the format, so let's roll with it. And on top of that, we've got some Legolas' Quick Reflexes, which in our deck can quite often be removal. Like, I don't like this card that much in Turbo Depth. Sometimes it feels like a necessity, but a lot of the time, Tamiyo's Safekeeping is just as good. However, this deck is very different. So we have lots of creatures that we're trying to untap. So Knight of the Reliquary untapping is absolutely great. Elvish Reclaimer, pretty good to untap this as well. Obviously, 2 mana to activate it means you're not necessarily always going to be getting the most out of it. You might not have the mana to do that. But still, you can untap your Knight, which is absolutely savage. And the ability to shoot up another land by untapping it is really strong, as well as the fact that we can just use this as removal, right? So you can put it on our Knight, swing with our Knight, blow something up with the ability on this. So yeah, all in all, lots of good tools. You have to know what you're doing with this deck and find the right tools for the right situation. Like I said, this is a bit out of my comfort zone when it comes to Dark Depths decks. I'm more of like a turbo or the really grindy sort of slow decks with like Loam and that sort of thing. Obviously, we do have Loam here, but we are fundamentally a creature beatdown deck a lot of the time. All right, sideboard-wise, we've got a whole bunch of tools to look through as well. So we've got Doorkeeper Thrull. This can stop some things like Thassa's Oracle, a bunch of Death and Taxes creatures, that sort of jam. Some more anti-combo cards, because we're a little bit weak to combo matchups because we are just a green-white deck. We don't have Hand Disruption, we don't have counter spells, so we've got to have a lot more tools for that. So you've got Deafening Silence, got the Collector Ouphe that I mentioned before, got some surgical here to go alongside another Endurance. We've got some Force of Vigors to blow up some problem artifacts, protect our hand with a Veiled Summer, a Glacial Chasm for when we need to protect. This is probably going to be good against matchups like Goblins. And then we also have Choke, which is just a really hateful card that jams people up, and I'm a big fan of it. And, of course, we've got another bit of removal in case we need it, so a Path to Exile. So that's the deck. Lots of different options, lots of different play patterns. This deck is really good in the meta right now, but it does require a little bit of finesse to play. So let's see how we go. Remember to like and subscribe, and let's get jamming. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Alright, well, Elvish Reclaimer is one of the best things we can be doing, so let's just start the game off with that. We've got access to some card advantage via Loam that we can work on as the time goes by. So let's just play out our little elf friend and see if this is good Now, there's a bunch of matchups where they could just go, okay, we're just going to combo you here and there's nothing you can do. But combo depths are a little bit fewer and further between in the format right now. Exploration. Okay, so we're going to be in some kind of like blue lands style matchup. So we can't go and get our Dark Depths here because they'll just copy it with their Thespian stage. So now we need to make some decisions. I think it's going to be Windswept Heath, and then we're going to be using this to go and find a... I don't know. We'll see what our opponent plays, and then we'll work out what we're fetching. But we're going to be using it to get some kind of utility land. So we might be looking for something like a Karakas if they're going to be racing to the combo. We could be looking for Wastelands and just start taking our opponent off of lands, but our opponent's almost certainly going to have Life from the Loam in their deck. It's very rare you see an exploration deck without a Life from the Loam in it. We also don't know if our opponent's playing additional colours. They might be on Bant. Alright. They're playing out some stuff, for sure. Alright. So what is the answer here? Well, we're going to get Savannah here, and then we will turn our Savannah into a... I think it's the Karakas. Now what we can do is we can play our own Thespian stage. And if they ever try to combo, we can then combo in response and hopefully get there with our Karakas. So we're going to be in a weird one. Now they have this as a saga they can kind of grind away with. But we kind of disincentivize them from activating it. Because then we can just Thespian stage and get a 2020. Alright, so we do have to worry about the... Alright, they got a Wasteland as well. Many, many things here. I'm not sure how we're supposed to beat what our opponent's got in front of us right now. Because they can get rid of our Karakas. Yeah, so we can Reclaimer this away. But they're going to make a 2020. If we make a 2020 in response, they make a 2020 in response. That doesn't get us anywhere. Is there any route we have around this? I guess we've got a draw step. We could find a white mana source and plow this. We could copy the Karakas with our Thespian stage. And we just need to survive one turn cycle. Yeah, this is a tough one. But we've also got this as a saga ticking along. Alright. We're going to sacrifice this. So we've got a Savannah, so we can still find a white source if we want one. Or we could go and get this Echoing Deeps, which becomes a Karakas again. Which seems reasonable. Okay. So now we need to draw a plow to get through this. So they can make this now, and we can't do anything about it. Yep. Alright, this is probably going to be a case of wanting to be the slightly bigger deck. Yep, so we've drawn a Wasteland. We don't have any way we can stop this. So we are 2020 to Nart. Okay. Yeah, generally you want to be the slightly more control of your deck than the other one, and that's kind of where our opponent's at there. So some Force of Vigors for their the sagas are certainly reasonable. Other things that are reasonable, things like Surgical Extraction. I don't think we need this Gaddock Teeg. Path to Exile, also pretty good here. We could run an Endurance. It's a threat that we can pressure our opponent with, as well as being able to stop their Loams doing stuff. So we've got potentially 5 cards we're interested in. Legolas' Quick Reflexes. I think that we don't really want that so much here, and we don't really want the Sylvan Safekeeper. Like, they're fine, but I don't think that's where this sort of game is going to be won and lost. I like having Karakases and that sort of stuff. We can probably trim a Dark Depths, because we don't really want a Dark Depths a lot of the time, because our opponent can then copy it. So I'm happy to trim a Dark Depths, and that puts us down to 61, because we're a 61 card deck. I think that's probably fine there. So we still got a Dark Depths that we can shoot it for when we need to, but we just don't want to ever play a Dark Depths out at any point. So this looks a little bit better. Okay. So this looks pretty reasonable to me. We can Mox Diamond, Elvish Reclaimer. So I think we're probably getting rid of the Savannah here. And then we'll cast a Reclaimer. And then we'll get this Windswept Heath. I don't believe we're going to use this Green Sun Zenith to get like a Dryad Arbor or anything. We can use it to get another Knight down the line. And the reason we play this one out is so we don't have any Wastelandable permanents. An Exploration from our opponent. Yep, it's pretty good. Expedition map. Alright. Alright, so we'll play out this Flagstones. We'll crack this. Then we're just going to get a basic forest here. Jam a very potent card in this matchup. Just a very potent card in general. And we're getting for a little bit of damage. So if we get to untap with this Knight, it becomes very difficult for our opponent to navigate. Like, any of their big plays. Because they're all land-centric, and we've just got all the lands we want on tap, including Wastelands. A Green Sun Zenith. What do we want from our Green Sun Zenith? We could go and get another Knight. Probably doesn't hurt too much. We can go and get a Reclaimer, that's not very exciting. I think we're just going to get another Knight here. We do have to sacrifice our Forest. So we could get a Knight, or we could get an Outland Liberator and try and blow up their exploration. But I think just getting more power in play is going to be where I want to be. Just give us more tutors. Let's get in for 1 point of damage again. We're going to leave our Knight back so that we can interact with our opponent at instant speed. And then once we have 2 Knights up and running, we should be pretty good. And the thing about Knight of the Reliquary is that the lands it gets you, they come into play untapped. I'm not going to fetch a thing to grow this now because I might need to fetch something in response, but we can fetch in our opponent's end step, knowing that we can then untap and fetch into some more stuff if something goes wrong. It's unlikely our opponent's going to be able to kill both of our guys when they seem to be on like a rug list. Alright, so they're cracking their expedition map. There's a Saga, sure. That's something we have covered. We can Green Sun Zenith for an Outland Liberator if we want to. Or we can just go and get some more exciting bits and pieces. So what we're going to do is at the end step, we're going to go get Yavimaya. Because we need our things to be forest so that we can sacrifice them to Knight. So if we go and get the Yavimaya here, that turns on our Knights to find whatever we want. Okay. So we can sacrifice this. Let's try and work out if we want to crack it first. It does make our Knights bigger if we crack it first. Which gives us less things to fetch though. Get Savannah here. Let's crack this for a Wasteland. That's how we are navigating this one. So we'll attack with just our Reclaimer, I think. Now we could just spam out yet another Knight, and that's probably going to be pretty strong. We didn't need to attack the Savannah. We should have selected the Flagstones. That's foolish. And Endurance. Interesting. So we can put 1 land, 2 land. Okay. So these can bounce off each other if I want that to happen. Right, I think I'll get rid of this as a Saga. Our opponent's got 3 cards left in hand. So they could still have a crop rotation here. Yeah, that looks like what's happening. Right, so our opponent has a Wasteland now. I don't think we can save this Reclaimer here. I think we have to play a little bit cagey on what our opponent can do. Sorry, Reclaimer. Okay, do we want to fire off this other Green Sun and get ourselves another Knight? Or do you want this? I think I kind of want the Outland Liberator because it might flip and we can just start taking out explorations and stuff. Alright. So, let's do it for the full 3. So I don't want this Reclaimer, I don't want this Knight. Like, Knight is just so good here. I'm going to be hard-pressed not to take a Knight. If we get the Liberator and they don't play anything on their turn, we can attack and blow their exploration, but they've got Endurance anyway. Yeah, let's just get another Knight. The card is pretty backbreaking. It's the reason why this deck exists, so let's lean into it a little bit, shall we? So we don't want to activate Knight at the end step because that gives our opponent an easy Wasteland on our like Yavimaya or whatever. Okay, so now we get to do some jamming. Right, I think I'm going to attack with 1 Knight of the Reliquary. Right, so this looks somewhat suspicious. We'll go and get ourselves a Savannah, is fine. I'm just going to gobble up this Endurance, if they've got another one. I'd like to Wasteland our Thespian stage. That is an interesting one. Right, we will copy the Flagstones here. We choose to keep this one. Yeah, we choose to keep this one so that we can make sure that we have more lands in our graveyard because it feels like we're about to get Endurance again. I think hitting our Yavimaya could be more devastating in a lot of ways. Yes, I will use this ability. We'll go and get another Savannah. Because now if they want to Endurance us. Alright, so they've got to grow. They've got Punishing Fires here. Interesting. So this means they're going to be wiping our graveyard, probably with an Endurance. That's going to be pitching 2 cards. Right, I'm just going to buy back the Punishing Fire. Okay. There is the Endurance. So our Knight of the Reliquary is going to die to state-based effects, and their Endurance is going to get some work done here. Okay. Right, let's sacrifice this. Let's get plains. As you can see how many decisions we're having here, and I'm certainly not convinced I'm making the right ones, but then we get the Sejiri Steppe here. Protect our knight here. Give it pro green. And then once the endurance hits, that's going to kill this knight. And they stacked the triggers in a way so that we couldn't then get a Bojuka Bog without getting wiped. But our opponent is down to just punishing fires and this endurance though. So we're in a pretty reasonable spot. Another Wasteland. Alright, opponent. You like the Wastelands? We can't fetch at end step here because they can just Wasteland us off of something else. So just go to untap and carry on. We do have to worry a little bit about punishing fires, but not a huge amount. So we attack with this, we go and find a land. I don't think we need to do anything. There's no point playing out this Elvish Reclaimer yet because they can just punishing fire it. If they're punishing fire one of our knights, then we have to do something in response. But I think that's acceptable. We're just going to try and grind with these knights for a little bit. Make our opponent make the first move. Because if we activate one of these knights, then they can just punishing fire in response. They're copying. Interesting. We can just take our opponent off some red mana here. Right, so we can get this Wasteland. We'll strip out this Tiger. So the only red source they have now is the Grave of the Burn Willows, which we can then get rid of in relatively short order. And we'll leave up our knights here. Pretty close to having an Elvish Reclaimer at 3-4, which makes it a lot better to play into the known punishing fire. Right, I guess we'll go into attacks. Let's get this game one. We're falling behind in clock. I'm just going to take it. Yeah, I think we just hold up endurance. If our opponent draws a Life from the Loam, we're going to want to be able to put that into play. We could play the Reclaimer, but we may as well wait. Thespian stage. Copying our plains. That's interesting. I'm going to take this plains out. And then we can get Wasteland. And then we can take out our opponent's Grave of the Burn Willows. Or we take out their Thespian stage. I think we just take out the Grove here. Just cut them off from all that. They can Wasteland our Yavimaya, but I can live with that. We've got a Life from the Loam somewhere in our deck that we can find as well. We've got our opponent's Loam covered. Do we throw this guy down for additional pressure, or do we use it later on? I think we save this, use it as a reactive spell. Says extraction. Okay, that might change things up a little bit. Alright, let's attack with our Knight of the Reliquary. Can I get 6 points of damage at your face, please, opponent? We can. Right, so now we can just hold up the Knight and the Endurance. So our opponent never really had an engine. Like, they were hoping their Ezra Sag would be like an engine that keeps them going. They would like to copy our Savannah. I don't mind that. That's fine. Like, the problem when they copied the plains was it was a basic land. I didn't want them to copy a basic land because then we can't wasteland them off of it. Let's go to another green source. But they already had one green source, which is the main thing for Loam. Okay, Mox Diamond. Scarring a Wasteland. Right, let's just jam this Endurance. Alright, our opponent's had enough. So the power of Knights is very strong. I've certainly been on the receiving end of that a few times myself. Yeah, I think we just go in again. This one is not a keeper, I'm afraid, so it's a mulligan. It's fine. Don't really like this Dryad Arbor very much. I guess we'll throw that back. So we've got Crop Rot, Endurance, and Plow. So we've got some things covered. So we can collapse their engine if they have a Loam, a Saga. That is a trickier one to beat. Oh, and an Expedition map. Okay, so we can just go and wasteland their Saga and hope they don't have anything. And honestly, I think that's fine to do here. Just say no to Ezra Saga. If they play a Landon and a Life from the Loam this turn, that's going to be less than ideal for us. We can play a green or a white source without exposing it to wastelands. That's pretty handy. Our opponent's got one card in hand. They do have this expedition map. So you can go and fetch the Dark Depths. Yeah, that's what they're going for. We have that covered with this plow. They're going to do it now. Right, 1 card left in hand. We don't have any surveil lands like Lush Portico, I think is the green white one. Alright, so we'll play out the plains. Pass. If they make the Marit Lage, we'll just kill it. And we have 1 turn for them not to draw a Loam. If they draw a Loam this turn, that's going to be really, really backbreaking for us. But if we can untap and have this Endurance to weaken the Loam, make it... Oh, yes. Okay. I think we are in the driving seat now. So we can play out an end of turn Endurance and sweep up the graveyard, or we can play it in response to a Life from the Loam. A Blast Zone and a Forest. Nothing else. Okay. Let's crack this. Let's get Forest. Crack this and get Forest as well. Let's cast our little friend here. Let's turn their Loam off. So they can have their own Endurance to slap back with here or block us. They can also up their Blast Zone. They can put 2 counters on it this turn and then blow up our Endurance the turn after. But I don't really mind. Alright, we'll just keep drawing Endurances. That's fine by me. Echoing Deeps doesn't really seem like a thing we want to play right now. And if we play this Yavimaya, it does... shut off. Well, it just turns on their Wasteland. Do I want to turn on our opponent's Wasteland and give them more green sources? They've already got a lot of green sources. Let's see if they'll burn a Wasteland on something that's not relevant. Like the Yavimaya. Right, so they're going to put some counters on their Blast Zone by the looks of it. We've got a lot of life total to work through on our opponents, so they've got some draws available. But they could cast... So they could pop the Blast Zone, they could get it back with life from the Loam, and then we could just Endurance it. We could even Endurance the first Blast Zone and the Life from the Loam. So we've certainly got some options available to us, which is very much what this green-white deck does. It is the options deck. We're not really in the market for this Force of Vigor right now. I'll certainly use it to blow up an Urza Saga if we get the chance. We could play this Echoing Deeps copying a Wasteland. That's certainly a thing that we're allowed to do. They are going to crop rotate. Okay. What have you got, opponent? There is an Urza's Saga. I dislike Urza's Saga, obviously. So we could pitch cast this or we could hard cast it. I think we're going to hard cast it. If we have to pitch cast Endurance, we can do that. But if we get to untap, then we get to just play all of our spells. So we're trying to dodge a Life from the Loam this turn specifically. Maze of Ith. Okay, that's kind of annoying. Let's play this. I would like my own Urza's Saga or just like a Wasteland. I think I'd rather have a Wasteland. So we're probably going to have our thing Wastelanded. I don't really want to play this Night Out into the onboard Blast Zone for 3. So we could try and play a second Endurance and see if that forces our opponent's hand. And then we can just play the Haymaker of the Night afterwards. It's 3 mana to pop this Blast Zone, right? So we'll need another land to do that. Actually, no, they don't, because we've got the Yavimaya. Oh, another Urza Saga, you say? Okay, so we are incentivized to play this out now. Try and bait our opponent's Blast Zone. Force of Vigor. Okay, that's pretty good. Sure. Do you want to take 3? They can certainly take 3 a whole bunch of times. Let's get rid of that Urza Saga. Okay, I'm just going to pop the Blast Zone. So this is one of the things we wanted to happen. This means we can just drop the Knight on an empty board. I really, really do not want to have to pitch cast this Endurance this turn. A Wasteland. Okay, that's fine. And the green card would be nice. Any green card? Not a green card. Alright, so we've got this Knight of the Reliquary. Maybe this matchup is better than I thought it was. Knight of the Reliquary is just such a strong card here. Life from the Loam. Alright. We got Blast Zone and an Urza Saga. We do get to just kill this Urza Saga and Endurance them away. So that's pretty good. So I would like to sacrifice this Windswept Heath here. Let's get rid of this Urza Saga. Jam this Endurance. So they do have a Blast Zone, but the Blast Zone won't do anything in the face of our Knight. So we won't be able to get it up. in time. And then we'll be hitting for large chunks of damage when we turn the corner in a sec. Alright, we'll attack with our endurance. This stops them putting the counters on the blast zone if they activate this. Yep, so they've correctly identified that as well. Let's play this out. Let's sacrifice. Let's float some mana first. And then let's sacrifice this forest. Let's go and get Wasteland. Go to its blast zone. Cast this little friend. And yeah, we've got, is it 2-turn clock? Let's have a look. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's a 2-turn clock. Big night is big. Alright, we got the GGs from our opponent. Who was a lovely player. Had a nice little chat with them. And yeah, this is what you want to see. Just lovely players. And our deck performed very well. The Knight of the Reliquary seems like an absolute mirror breaker for sure here. Alright, let's go to round 2. Alright, this one seems pretty reasonable. We can keep this hand. We can Dryad Arbor into a turn 2 Knight, which probably seems like the place to be. Underground Sea. That's a bit of a spooky one, isn't it? Alright, let's go and get ourselves a basic forest here. I do like having 3 basics in a deck. It feels nice. Let's see if we can get a Dryad Arbor and just set up our turn 2 Knight. Our opponent isn't really going to be killing creatures, most likely, because the most common Underground Sea decks are the blue-black Rescaminator, which doesn't really have main deck removal. Like, they could have a Troll of Khazad-dûm, but we should be able to beat that. An Orcish Bowmasters. That's a little sad for our poor little Dryad Arbor. Goodbye, Dryad Arbor. You were distinctly average as per usual. Okay, let's play this Windswept Heath. And we've got a crop rotation if we need it. But the crop rotation will come at a pretty steep cost because that's going to stop us from casting Knight. But it might be necessary to stop this Troll of Khazad-dûm from wrecking our day. Animate Dead. Is this what we're fighting over? If this goes wrong for us, it goes very wrong for us, right? Let's crack this first. So we get a Savannah. I'm going to crop rotate away the basic here. So we can play around days. I don't think we're beating a 6-5 at this stage of the game. Like, we do have like plows and stuff in our deck. But because our plan of making the turn 2 Knight fell through, we needed to get something out. Alright, so they can take us off of green mana here, which is shocking. But never punished. Okay. Let's go and get a basic. Alright, I would like Savannah, Windswept Heath, or Dryad Arbor. No, Windswept Heath is fine. Alright. So we sort of undid our opponent's Wasteland plan there. We did get very lucky to draw that green source. We have a lot of green sources in our deck, but maybe we're supposed to keep the basic forest for exactly that reason there. So I think we kind of got away with it a bit there. Alright, our opponent's just... Our opponent is just pondering away. Our oponder indeed. Oh god, can't even speak today. Alright, so we're going to take a little bit more chip damage from these guys. We're going to be able to lay down some larger friends in the near future. We don't need to dredge our life from Loam. They're evoking a Grief, pitching Animate Dead. So we're going to lose our Knight of the Reliquary here, because that should be the scariest thing for our opponent there. Because that card is very scary. So we can play this Gaddock Teeg and shut off Force of Wills, but it will shut off any Green Sun Zenith that we draw, which is kind of not great for us. So I'm not entirely sure we even want to cast it, but we do need to stop getting chipped down by these little orcs. And if they expend any resources on Gaddock Teeg, I can probably live with that. Alright. Are they going to take the Teeg? They might not even take the Teeg. They probably will take the Teeg areas. Okay, so we don't even have to make that decision of whether or not we want to cast this card. I don't think we are dredging here. Alright, our hand is not great. We can play a Wasteland, but I don't think that's the one. I think we need to get this Windswept Heath down, get our basic. Just make sure that we can have the ability to play a Knight around a days next turn. But I think our opponent's going to have us pretty solidly here. Although this is a very good matchup for the Green-White Depths deck. Because just a turn 1 Elvish Reclaimer just kind of shuts down a lot of what your opponent's doing. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're not really getting anywhere. I'll play out this Wasteland. We probably want to wasteland our opponent just so they can't cast a Grief. So that gives us less things to worry about in terms of threats. Because if they were to hard cast a Grief this turn, then there'd be 2 menace threats. Whereas this time we can take 5, and then we can plow the Grief. And then we can take 2 and still be alive. Obviously we don't get to crack our fetch if we do that. But the time for that is over. Alright, we got nothing. We just drew lands. There is a lot of lands in our deck, so can't argue with that. So what do we actually want for a matchup like this? I imagine this is where the Veil of Summers, the Choke, the Endurance, and the Soak Extraction are pretty good. Doorkeeper Thrull, it can stop Archon, it can stop Atraxa, it can stop Grief. But Grief is going to come down before this. And hopefully the others we're going to shut down with these other tools. So I don't think this is where we're going. So, we also want the path here. So Gaddock Teeg, that one can go away. Don't really like these. Quick Reflex, I don't really want to play a 1-mana 1-1. Doesn't feel like the matchup for that. Crop Rotation seems pretty bad if they're going to be counterspelling us a bunch. So we'll get rid of some of those. And this gives us... we need to leave 2 in to give us 61 cards. Do we want this Outland Liberator? That's a question. What is this doing for us? We could have another crop rotation, which can kind of play around days. Worth doing. Or do you want a Glacial Chasm to sit behind in case we... And I don't think Glacial Chasm is great here, to be perfectly honest with you. But maybe it lets us stop getting hit by something. So maybe we want one of these instead of Crop Rot. I'm trying to think what the Outland Liberator is going to actually do for us. It can blow up and animate dead as well as just being a guy. I think that's passable. The Crop Rotation is obviously a good spell, but if we cast it, some number of times you cast a Crop Rotation, you do just lose the game. Alright, so I think it's more important to get the Reclaimer down than it is to protect with Veil on the first turn. Because they can't reanimate until turn 2 anyway. So we can just get down our Reclaimer. Now if they counterspell this, then sure. But that's going to be 2 cards out of their hand. So now we're in a much better position than we were last game. We've got a thing that can interfere with their strongest plays. Alright, so we can play... I think we play this Savannah. And then pass. We can go and do some Reclaimer shenanigans. Turn our Savannah into a Flagstones at the end step, if that's what we want to do. Alright, so cycling a Troll of Khazad-dûm. That's fine. They're getting a basic swamp. So the Wasteland in our hand, unlikely to do a great deal here. But I suspect they don't have more than 2 swamps. Sorry, more than 2 basics. Sarbo's Web enters the battlefield. Each land with an activated ability. Okay. We have that covered if we want it. I think now we just go and get ourselves the Flagstones. The classic play. So this Boseiju does have an activated ability. This Wasteland also has an activated ability. We do have the Boseiju kicking around. So, do we want to jam a Knight into days? I don't think so. I think we're just going to sit behind this Reclaimer for another turn here. We can afford to play this one a little bit slowly. So, if you're unfamiliar with Sarbo's Web, comes to play, draws a card. Each land with an activated ability that isn't a mana ability doesn't untap during controlled untap step. So, our Wasteland won't untap. And fetch lands don't untap, but obviously, once you've tapped them, they're gone anyway, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so now we have a target for our Wasteland. A Dauthi Voidwalker, you say? Our opponent has played their land for the turn, so they can't reanimate this turn. Right, I will Wasteland their Underground Sea here. And then I will get rid of our Flagstones. And we'll get Savannah. And then we'll get a Spicy Land. What Spicy Land do we want? We could just get another Flagstones. That's probably reasonable here. Guess we left ourselves exposed with no Veil of Summer. Yeah. But we don't. Our hand is pretty gas here. Like, they can take the Knight. That's easily the best thing there. But we just have a second Reclaimer. We've got an engine in the Life from the Loam. And that leaves us with a Veil of Summer, which can force through any spells we do want to make sure they resolve. Our hand is pretty good. I guess they could take the Knight and try and reanimate themselves. Right, I've taken the Veil of Summer. Interesting. Alright, Windswept Heath. So we don't get to do all of the things, but we do get to play this Reclaimer. And pass. I don't think we're attacking just yet. Sure, attacking us for 3. There's a Wasteland from our opponent. So we could Boseiju here. Or we could just activate this. How important are these things to us? We could just get rid of these from our opponent's graveyard and force them into an Entomb line. But that's a thing that they could just have. Right, let's sacrifice this Flagstones. Oh, we don't get the thing because of Doughty Voidwalker. That's an interesting interaction I wasn't aware of. What do I want here? What do I want here? It's a Dryad Arbor and just get some more beats going. This should untap because it's the only activate ability it has is mana. This does give them a Bowmaster's target, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm playing this game right at all. Sure, you can Wasteland my Dryad Arbor. A life from the Loam. So we can crack this. Get ourselves basic here. We can just return these 3. This will put life from the Loam into our opponent's graveyard. Into our opponent's Doughty Voidwalker. Is that thing we want to do? Interesting choice there. Kind of living in fear of the reanimate plan, but maybe I shouldn't be. We should just be going hard. Alright, let's bash with these guys. I'll play this out. This is so we can pay around days. I'll happily lose our Boseiju to get a Knight of the Reliquary in. We're just trying to make some big things happen. Right, Force of Will, pitching a Tractor. That gives our opponent a Knight of the Reliquary in the Void if they want it. Alright, so they did have the Entomb. I would have imagined they boarded lower on the Entomb pan against what we're doing because we have so many ways of interacting with their graveyard, but then they've kind of next leveled us a bit by keeping it in. So that's kind of interesting. I think our opponent is playing this game much better than we are, so they do deserve to win. Alright, so there's Archon of Cruelty. That's going to do some work here. We lose one of our guys. We lose our life from the Loam. We lose 3 life. And then we die on the next turn, so we do need to find a removal spell right now. Our Reclaimer's not going to do it. Thespian Stage isn't going to do it. This is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, we got outplayed there. I think this matchup is heavily favoured for us, but I just didn't play it very well. Right, obviously we could have just kept the Reclaimers up the whole time, or just been like attacking with one and holding the other one back. That would have been way more sensible, I think. And we could Boseiju the Sabo's Web earlier as well. Like, there's just so many things we could have done differently this game. And I think we sort of showed you how this deck does require you to know what you're doing a little bit, and that's not really a thing we were doing. But this Green-White Depths deck is one of the reasons... this Scam deck is one of the reasons why you want to be playing the Green-White Depths deck, because you are so good against it, but we just played horribly. Our opponent's hand was pretty decent, but we could have played this one so much better. Alright, let's go to round 3. Alright, this hand is fine. It's a little slow, but our deck is often going to be a bit slow. So at least we have a crop rotation in case we need to interact with something early on that way. Same with the endurance, and then we can hopefully just play into a knight. If it's one of the really fast combo decks, they're going to beat us anyway. So, or they're very likely to beat us anyway. And the ways that we would beat that would be via crop rotation or an endurance to stop a Beseech the Mirror kill or whatever. So our hand is surprisingly well rounded considering we don't get to play anything in the early stage of the game. Another crop rotation, interesting. All right, play out our Windswept Heath. We are incentivized to play around Stifle a little bit. Our opponent is either going to be on a Delver build or possibly some kind of show and tell list. All right, nothing off this Misty Rainforest. I'm not going to crack this into a Stifle. All right, second main phase, Dragon's Rage Channeler. Interesting. I don't really want this Sejiri Steppe in our hand, and we want to get it into play at some point soon. I guess... I think I'm going to play it now. If our opponent cracks this fetch, I'll crack this for a forest. Alright. A Brainstorm. Okay. As soon as our opponent cracks that fetch and we don't have to worry about Stifle, I will be cracking our fetch. If our opponent plays a Wasteland, then I think we have to do it in response and see if we can crop rotate this step into something more useful. Alright. Now it's our time to shine. By shine, I mean get a basic forest and pass. But still, it's kind of shining. So they've got a Brainstorm there. They've shuffled some cards away. Got themselves another Volk. Still no indication if they're playing an additional colour yet. Well, that's not true. We've seen the Molten Collapse. What am I talking about? The Molten Collapse is the Grixis signifier. Alright, so we got Ponder coming off here. They kept the card on top. So we're looking at... There's going to be Bowmasters in their deck. And there's going to be Molten Collapse. That's mostly it for the black cards. Alright, we don't care about this Wasteland right now. We don't care about taking more damage. Alright, they're letting us untap. I'll play this Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. I'll play this Elvish Reclaimer. Can eat it to Lightning Bolt, obviously. But such is the nature of things. We have 2 potential crop rotations available. We can go get something like a Bojuka Bog and mess with our opponent's graveyard. Brainstorm. So we could be looking at a Murktide Regent this turn. That would suck for us. We could try and get the crop rotation going, but that is not without cost. Same as like firing 2 cards off with this Endurance that we're hoping to actually cast at some point. They left their Surveil card on top again. So the riches are flowing for them somewhat. That's what happens when you cast like a bunch of cantrips. Okay, they would like to Lightning Bolt our Elvish Reclaimer. We don't have any recourse here. Like we could crop rotate into a fetch land. If we crop rotate into a fetch land, is that good? I think it's fine. Don't really want this to get Force of Willed. They are Force of Willing though. So would I rather keep my Reclaimer? Like we can definitely keep our Reclaimer if we fire off this crop rotation, but if they have a daze, that's backbreaking. I think we just have to take it. Alright, in they come. Alright, 2 Wastelands. Yuck. That's going to be a tough one to beat. A Wasteland of our very own. Is that what I'm about right now? Now we're going to need to cast this Endurance at some point. We could play this Echoing Deeps just as a card. That exposed ourselves pretty badly to Wasteland. Okay, we're going to play this Wasteland out, I think. We can play out an Endurance, or we can hold up this crop rotation. I don't really want to get double Wastelanded here. Maybe that's playing too cautiously, and we're supposed to just go for it with like a big Endurance this turn. Something like a Murktide, that's going to be... Yeah, that's going to be pretty good. If we want to cast this Endurance, we have to cast it now. It's just so bad for us though. But we're going to need to resolve our... So basically I was hoping they would attack first. But we get rid of this now so that their Murktide doesn't have more counters on. So they can just Wasteland us a bunch here. That's not going to be very pleasant for us. So we're going to need to resolve a crop rotation on this Murktide to get something to stop this Murktide Regent, most likely. We could always just draw a Plow. We did not draw a Plow. So we can have a green source here, or we can have a white source. We get this Windswept Heath as a copy. So our opponent might just Wasteland this, and then we can crop rotate it for a Maze of Ith. We're kind of hoping that's what happens here. But why would they do that, right? Well, I guess they want to stop us getting access to white mana. So I think that's pretty reasonable if they were to Wasteland it now. I think we have to take it this turn and see if we can bait out this second main phase Wasteland. Because surely they want to stop us getting white mana, because, you know, our deck is almost certainly going to run Plows. And that's the thing they're going to want to have to avoid. I think our opponent is looking good over there, though. They're not going for this Wasteland plan. Okay. A Windswept Heath. What happens if we crack this? Is our opponent going to interfere with it? Alright, they're not. So we get this Plains. Let's play this out. So we can cast a Gaddock Teeg, which stops Force of Will, and we can also pay around days. So we do get to survive a turn if we do it this way. So we don't have... Yeah, so double days gets us here. We're going to fetch the card we're looking for at the right time. So we're going to do it whilst they're in combat. So we can go and get the Maze of Ith, and we're guaranteed to protect for a turn even if they Wasteland it. And then hopefully in the meantime we can just draw like a Plow and just deal with it that way. Lightning Bolt targeting our face. That definitely fills me with some trepidation there. Okay, you got another Lightning Bolt? They do. Okay, yeah, that just beats us. Yeah, the Glacial Chasm's in the sideboard anyway. Yeah, we just did not really get to go anywhere. Alright, Choke is looking good here, and Endurance is looking good here. Path to Exile is looking good here, and that's probably it. I don't think we want Glacial Chasms. So 3 cards to come in. Outland Liberator. What are you doing? I don't like Gaddock Teeg here. I think that's probably not a surprise to you. I don't really like the Sylvan Safekeeper either. I think we're taking the control route, which means we probably don't really like the Legolas Reflexes that much either. So, do we want anything else here? Like Veil of Summon to force through something scary. Glacial Chasm in a panic. I don't think so. I think we're just going to run it like this with these 3 cards in. Again, I think this is probably a matchup that we should be quite good into. But I just don't have the reps with the deck to get there. So what are we looking at? We've got some stuff here. I don't think this is where we want to be. I think we can mulligan and get something better. It's way better. Much less fragile as well. You can throw away Dryad Arbor, as is often the case when it's in your opener. But turn 1, Reclaimer. Turn 2, Sylvan Library is going to do some amount of work for us. And I can definitely lightning bolt our Reclaimer, but you know, that's the thing that's just going to happen. The good thing about Library is we don't have to draw the cards. So if they have a Bowmaster, we get to decide at the last minute if we're drawing the cards. So it's not like we can draw the card, like say, commit to drawing the cards, and then our opponent will Bowmaster us. Yep, so looking at the top card of the Library, which means they have a fetch land and a non-fetch land, I believe. Lets them know what they're playing here. Alright, they did not like the top card, so they're shuffling it away with this Flooded Strand. We're going to see a Bolt. We are going to see a Bolt. Okay, now, because they had the Bauble, the way they played it, it does suggest to me they have another land. So I don't know if wastelanding our opponent is where I want to be here. So we could play a Sylvan Library into a Daze. We could play a land and do nothing and let our opponent sculpt for a whole other turn. Or we could wasteland them and hope that my read was wrong. I don't like that very much. I think the play here is try the Library into a Daze. Like, it's at least going to slow our opponent down if they have a Daze. And the Library might not even be good if they've got... Alright, we've got a Force of Will out of it, sure. The Library might not even be good if they've got Bowmaster sit in hand. Okay. Our opponent's got 5 cards in hand now. I suspect one of them is a land. Alright, they're brainstorming. I suspect there's also a land that casts a lightning bolt. So it's probably just a straight up volcanic. They might have shuffled that back in now though, so it's not a thing they're going to necessarily have. Alright, there is an Underground Sea and a Delver of Secrets. Okay. And Endurance. This is a potent Magic the Gathering card. So they didn't daze our last play. Are we supposed to try and get them with this? We need to go and get ourselves a Savannah. If we want white mana for plows. But we need Forest if we don't want to get wastelanded. I think we get Savannah here. So they got 3 things in there. I think we're just main phasing this Endurance right now. Stop things getting out of hand in their turn. Did they brainstorm into a Daze? They did brainstorm into a Daze. Okay. Yeah, not running the hottest for us. But that was our last opportunity to stop a Murktide coming into play. And now we're just going to get the full Delver treatment. An Unlicensed Hearse. Okay, that's not a Murktide. I'm relatively happy to see that Hearse. Like, it's going to mess with our life from the Loam, but that's not the end of the world. It's also going to mess with our Elvish Reclaimer and Nightly Reliquary, which is definitely annoying. But we've got an Outland Liberator and stuff in our deck still. If we turn into a creature, you might be able to plow it. Oh my god, plows. There are plows in our deck. Okay, so what colour will I rather remove our opponent from? I think it's red because that's Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is like one of the best cards in the deck. So let's get rid of that. So we have a plow. I don't really want to waste it on a Delver, but if a Delver flips, maybe we're incentivized to do that, but we don't have anything else going on. Delver did not flip, so that's either another creature or a land for the most part. If they don't play a land, then we know it's a creature, so that's a Murktide most likely that we need to hold back for. It could be a Dragon's Rage Channeler though. Alright, you keep eating our graveyard. A little hungry, unlicensed Hearse. A Green Sun Zenith. We can do a Green Sun Zenith for 1 and get a Reclaimer. That doesn't feel great. We can play the Sejiri Steppe, and then next time we can get an Outland Liberator. And that feels like it's going to be a bit better into this Hearse. It's going to answer one of the problems that we're kind of dealing with. Alternatively, if we draw land, I guess we don't even need to draw land. Depends on how much we want to hold up this Source to Plowshares. Lightning Bolt has been revealed. Okay, that definitely changes what I want here. So we want to get an Endurance, I believe. I don't know if they're going to play a land and a spell next turn. If they, I'll take the 3 and then I'll plow this end step and then try and Green Sun Zenith for the endurance. All right, let's plow this. And then we can Green Sun Zenith for endurance. If we draw a land, we get to play that around days. We just get the endurance. Make sure the Murktides can't come down. Because we know they've got a creature in hand because it was the card they didn't play off of Delver. They had 2 turns in a row where Delver didn't do anything. So I think we're in a reasonable spot now. And obviously we can just draw a Dark Depths at some point and win the game. Or a crop rotation or whatever. Another Delver. I believe we have that beat with our endurance. But if we attack, they can attack with the hearse, and that's pretty scary. Alright. I would like a non-basic green source here, I think. A basic green source, sorry. So we can attack here, then our opponent can crack back for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's not really a winning thing, but are we blocking with our endurance? If they flip their Delver, they're just going to attack with the hearse. If we hold back the endurance and they don't flip the Delver, then they can't attack. That saves us 1 point of damage. I think we're just better off serving for a little bit. Okay. Right, it did not flip with the Delver. Was it a land? It was not. Alright. So we traded 3 damage for 1 damage on that turn cycle. We have a very similar decision this turn. Hopefully we can draw a card that is going to be useful. A Green Sun Zenith. Right, let's cast this. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it for X equals 2. Let's go and get ourselves the Outland Liberator so we don't have to worry about the hearse anymore. And then we can attack with our endurance. Alright, we're getting there. We flip the Delver and we take 3. That puts us to 10. But if they activate the hearse, we just kill the hearse. And that's fine. Wasteland. Alright, so when our Frenzied Trapbaker attacks, it will blow up this hearse. That's going to be pretty spicy. Are we leaving our endurance back now? I think we can at this point. Yep, goodbye unlicensed hearse. You were mean, but you're gone now. I'm taking 3. Let's jam this Reclaimer. They can obviously lightning bolt this if they draw a red source and they have a lightning bolt. But I like the spot we're in. Time for this Delver to turn into a 3-2. Alright, our opponent's just had enough. Alright, we found it. Do I like what we've got here? Do we want some more interaction for unlicensed hearse? Like, it's quite potent. We can kill it if it turns into a creature using our path and plows. We've got a Boseiju in our deck already, and we've got the Outland Liberator. I don't think it's a thing we need to be desperately worrying about, because if we can keep all their creatures off the board, then we're alright anyway. And like, they need 2 power to crew it, so they either need to have a creature that we care about, or like 2 little creatures that we don't care about at that particular moment. Alright, I can keep this one. This is a turn 1 Reclaimer into turn 2 Knight. And those are the 2 best cards in our deck, pretty much, so seems like a good shout. We're going to see a Ponder. Alright, they didn't start with the aggressive 1-drop start. That's good for us. Because our opponent's Grixis, I don't believe they have Blood Moons. Otherwise, I would board in the Force of Figures. But as a general rule, the 3-colour builds, it's only the rug one that splashes just for the backside of the Druid that ever plays Blood Moon. Or the straight blue-red one. Alright, I think we are just going to go get our like big haymakers in play now. Let's get rid of this. Let's cast this for X is 1. Go and get ourselves a little Reclaimer. Like, we had the option to Wasteland there, but usually the Delver decks are pretty good at not caring about getting Wastelanded. They've got a deck full of cantrips. They can usually find what they want. They did not shuffle with their Ponder either. Now, if they start missing land drops, you can bet I'm going to be Wastelanding them a bunch, but here we are. Waiting for our opponent to finish brainstorming. Must be nice being able to look at all those cards. Alright, so they got Polluted Delta. They get to shuffle away some bad cards. Their hand is probably looking pretty stacked about now. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see a threat. Alright, Lightning Bolt is also fine. They probably have a threat, but they've just prioritized the Bolt. A Green Sun Zenith. Doesn't quite get us where we need to go. Am I okay with our Knight of the Reliquary being dazed? We have 2, and then we can get an Endurance. I think that's fine. It's definitely a daze-worthy target. Alright, it's a Force of Will. That was going to catch whatever we did anyway. So we need to dodge the Murktide Regent. So we could have fired off a Wasteland there and just hope that our opponent doesn't have another land. And they can't cast a Murktide that way. But I think we're better off just... Yes, they did have a land. So that play would have failed and wouldn't have been where we wanted to be. A Grafdigger's Cage. That doesn't do anything against that deck. So that's fine. Echoing Deeps. How are we getting rid of this Murktide Regent? We're probably casting a Knight of the Reliquary and getting a useful spell. Useful land, sorry. Creature cards in libraries. Oh, sorry, this does do stuff. Sorry, it shuts off our Green Sun Zenith. Okay. Do we want to take our opponent off of black mana? Which also makes our creature lightning bolt proof. I believe that is worth doing. So we're looking for Maze of Ith next to keep this Murktide at bay until we can plow it. This Green Sun Zenith is no longer a useful Magic the Gathering card. We take 7. As long as our creature survives, we can go and get ourselves... Okay, we've got Delver, plus Demar, so no cards in hand now. So we just have to beat what's on the board. A plow would be lovely. You're not a plow. So would I like a Wasteland? Because we can play this out now to have a Wasteland the turn after. Or we might want to have a repeatable Maze of Ith if that's the thing we require. Right, so we'll take this. And our opponent isn't going to attack with a Delver unless they flip it. They also get 2 looks at what they're drawing because they get to see what they're drawing with the Delver. And then decide if they want to flip it or not. So if they don't want this card, they'll shuffle their library with their fetch land. Yeah. So we can go and get our... yeah, so we can go and get our Maze of Ith here. So Delver's not attacking. Right, let's tap this for mana just to make sure that we're not getting stung by something. Right, let's go and get a Maze of Ith. Let's say no to this Murktide for a turn. If we can find a plow, then I think we're doing quite well. But at the moment, our opponent finds a Wasteland, and we can be in some trouble. Brainstorm is a pretty good one to find there. But they might be stuck with whatever they've got on top, but it does mean that the Delver is almost certainly flipping. Because about a third of the cards in our opponent's deck flip Delver. So it's still possible they miss, but I think we have to calculate the chance of this Delver flipping as being very high. An Endurance. I don't really want cards to leave our opponent's graveyard. Doesn't feel like a great one for us. Alright, so we do want this Echoing Deeps. And we want it to be a Wasteland so we can take our opponent off black and shut off some of the spells they can cast. We're not attacking with Knight of the Reliquary now, are we? We can Wasteland our opponent into nothing quite soon, and we just have to answer what's in play. What are you going to do? Delver of Secrets. An Insectile Aberration. Sure. A Brainstorm. So we can cast this Endurance and block the Delver. Then we get to Maze of Ith, the Murktide Regent. And then all we need to do is answer the Murktide Regent permanently. But we will be growing their Murktide Regent with this Endurance because we're going to make some cards leave their graveyard. Okay, there's the Wastelands. That's pretty bad news for us. We don't really want to play an Endurance here, do we? Because how big is that going to be? That's going to put 2 more counters on this. That's going to be 9 damage. Alright, let's sacrifice this Maze of Ith. What is going to help here? A 2020 is probably going to be quite useful. Yes, I'll take a 2020 blocker. Not this turn, obviously. We have mana floating, but I'd rather snag this Insect Aberration in combat. Cast this, so green, green, 1. And we've got 1 to pay around a days. So this should resolve. We're going to grow their Murktide a bunch. This is whenever an instant or sorcery leaves your graveyard. Yeah, so this will give it +2. Yeah, so we're going to take some slightly more damage here. But we're going to clear this Delver. I don't think we can get the full 15 damage from these 2 creatures, though. A Bauble, sure. So we have a Marit Lage next turn. Legolas' Quick Reflexes is a pretty good one. So if we remove this, are there any black sources our opponent may have? Have they got a Bowmaster or something here? Okay. So we probably want to do this in our opponent's upkeep, don't we? Haven't seen a Stifle yet from our opponent. Maybe they have one though. So let's float some mana off of this. Sacrifice this Savannah. Let's get Dark Depths. Let's copy our Dark Depths. Let's make a 2020. All right, our opponent is scooping that up. Excellent. Oh, and that's the whole match. So yeah, we managed to beat the Delver matchup. It felt pretty good. We never really drew like the removal in this. We just kind of had to kind of do it piecemeal. But we've got some good fair ways of removing Graveyard to shrink some stuff. And we can go pretty big in the depths. So yeah, pretty happy with that one. On to round 4. Turn 1 Elvish Reclaimer is pretty good, but we don't have a second reliable mana source here. But we're on the draw, so I think that's acceptable. 2 draws in our deck is like 50% mana, so I'll take it. Basic Swamp from our opponent, and nothing else to follow. So I would like to have access to our Plow, but I also don't want to get Wastelanded. So I think we are just getting the Forest here. Like, our mana base isn't free, that's for sure. There's certainly some concessions we have to make. But hopefully next turn we can draw a mana source. Worst case scenario, we can play a Depths and... Yikes. Okay. We're just going to get crop rotted. Sorry, we're going to get done because we didn't have the crop rot. Could be that way. Maybe we're supposed to just hold up the crop rotation there. Alright, opponent, what would you like to reveal to me? Show me your secrets. Right. Brazen Borrower, Daze... So chose Grief, Reanimate, Animate Dead, Underground, Sea, Entomb. So the Grief's gone as well. Grief, Entomb, Animate Dead. Underground, Sea. Oh, and they've got Reanimate as well. Okay, so we're probably going to lose this Plow. But we can go get a Karakas and bounce this little Atraxa. And no longer have to worry about it. Or at least not for a little while. But they're going to have... They're just going to get all these things. Well, like, we're probably dead this turn. If we'd have kept up the crop rotation, we'd be more likely... We might have had an option to win this one instead of just playing out our Reclaimer. So maybe that's on me for not being experienced enough with this deck. Check 10 this turn. We go and get the Karakas. But our opponent is going to get the Archon of Cruelty, which is a bit of a doozy. But if they animate Dead it, we are okay. Because we can Outland Liberator. We won't have enough mana. No, we will, because the Flagstones will give us the extra mana we need. Yeah. Okay. So we get this Karakas now. Our opponent's played land, so we can get it now. It doesn't really matter. Unless they got a Stifle. Right, we'll get Savannah. What do you want? Plains? I get Plains. Might as well play with some basics. Then we go and get Karakas. Our opponent's already played their land, so we don't have to worry about Wasteland. And then they hit us for 10. They Entomb, Reanimate. Well, they Entomb, Animate Dead, and Archon of Cruelty. We lose our Reclaimer. But we bounce the Atraxa. We only take 3 from the Archon, where we Outland Liberator, blowing up the Animate Dead. Maybe this works. Stranger things have happened. Oh, we need to find a land actually, right? That's the one caveat. We need a land so we can actually activate our Outland Liberator. But we've got a lot of lands in our deck. Sure. Oh, they're just getting a Troll. Okay. That's also fine. That gives us slightly more life to work with. And doesn't lose us our guy. Okay, we found the land we wanted. So we play the why are we playing the Boseiju when we can just use guaranteed blow up the Animate Dead with it? That does seem better, doesn't it? Alright, let's return this Atraxa. Go away. Let's play this Dark Depths. Getting ready to combo soon. We don't have to do this now, do we? I don't believe our opponent's playing Stifle. It's quite uncommon. So let's just Boseiju away the Animate Dead. Take 3 this turn, go to 6. And we're live for some draws that can just make us a 20/20 and kill our opponent. I will take that. Let's channel this onto this Animate Dead. No counter spells for this one. We didn't have to use our Outland Liberator. Right, so they fetched an Undercity Sewers off the Boseiju trigger. Pretty good. That means they don't have a Grief they want to hard cast in their hand. So they've either got better things than a Grief to do, or they don't have a Grief. So we can Legolas' quick reflexes on our Elvish Reclaimer, attack, kill the Grief, and be alright. So we might have stabilized. It's possible we might be able to win this one. Alright, just a land. That's not too exciting. Animate Dead back on their friend. Okay. So now we are looking to do the Outland Liberator play. A Windswept Heath. That could be an awkward one for us down the line. Alright. Outland Liberator. Do we get to have you? Double Days beats us here. Force of Will beats us. Oh wow, we're in, are we? This is great, right? Because we get to double block the Grief, and then we sack the Outland Liberator to the Animate Dead. So we get to kill the Grief with our Reclaimer, and then also kill the Troll. So not bad. Not bad at all. They didn't have another Undercity Sewers they found, so this could be a Bowmasters. It is a Bowmasters. So we still have this beaten, eventually. But it's getting tight. It is actually an onboard trick though, so our opponent could certainly have a way to play spoiler. Right, you just come in with all your guys. Right, so we'll double block this guy. And we'll blow up this Animate Dead. We don't really want to crack our fetch land until we're ready to. So we're gonna lose the Troll of Khazad-dûm. They're gonna hit us for 2. We're gonna clean up their Grief. Then we can block the Bowmaster next turn. And that'll be like relatively stable, but our opponent's got 4 cards in hand. And they need to go to their second main phase first. Alright, so it looks like they got a spell. If they got a Bowmaster here, we can Legolas' quick reflexes on our Reclaimer. That will leave us somewhere near being dead though. A Reanimate on Troll of Khazad-dûm. Unfortunately, we don't have the mana. This Dark Depths has just shafted us a bunch. Our opponent's on 6. Do we have a way of beating that life total? I don't believe we do. Knight of the Reliquary. We don't have a way out of this one, do we? No, I don't believe we can beat the Troll here. Alright. It was hard fought. We were so close to stabilizing. There are some Swords to Plowshares in our deck, but couldn't draw enough of them. Alright, Veil of Summer looks good here. Choke looks good here. Endurance looks good here. Path to Exile looks good here. Surgical looks good here. Gaddock Teeg, I do not like you. I don't think we want these things. Outland Liberator is fine. Sylvan Library is reasonable. Crop Rotation can be a little sketchy against the amount of stuff that they can do counterwise, but sometimes we're going to need it. So I think it's okay to have one. I have a couple in there. Alright, let's try this 61 card special. Obviously, it's always 61 card special because that's our starting deck size. We are on the play. We've got some tools. I will keep this hand, I guess. We can remove a creature. We can get some more lands with this Loam. We have the emergency Graveyard Hate. We have lots of pieces of Graveyard Hate, so we're not going to get blown out by their scary thing, and we should be able to beat their like middle of the road thing. That is a Polluted Delta from our opponent. Okay. A Wasteland. So I would quite like to get our Life from the Loam going, but I don't think that's what we should be doing this turn. I think the plan is to next turn try and Life from the Loam, getting back Wasteland and Windswept Heath. And just keeping enough mana to play around Daisies for our Surgical, and possibly, if we have to, pitch this Endurance, then sure. This is an Entomb. What is that going to be? An Archon of Cruelty. That's a cruel one. Let's get them to at least expend some resources on this. Looks like we're going to see an Animate Dead. They're probably going to get an island off of this. Alright, yes, our Wasteland isn't going to really do anything here. Or Ponder first. So maybe it's a Reanimate. Or they might not have anything and they're just reanimating it for the sake of it. Sorry, entombing it for the sake of it. To be mana efficient gives them options of having good draws to just slam down a giant monster. Alright, so they do have it. I would like to surgically extract your Archon of Cruelty, please. Alright, we get the Archon of Cruelty. They only have one in their deck, that's to be expected. 2 Drown the Locks, 3 Doughty Voidwalkers, 2 Orcish Bowmasters, some Griefs. The Atraxa's gone, so there's no big monsters left. It's just the Trolls. Yeah? Okay. And we get to see their hand. Alright. Not unhappy with how this is shaking out. a Maze of Ith. So I would like to crack this. We're going to go and get ourselves a basic forest. I'd like to cast a Life from the Loam, targeting this. We know that we're safe with this one. Would I like to Bojuka Bog and get rid of some stuff here? Or would I just like to get our Maze of Ith online? Or perhaps our Wasteland? I'll take a Wasteland. We could have got the Windswept Heath and gone to fetch a plough if we need it. But we can just do that on our opponent's on our next turn anyway if they draw something that's worth ploughing. Well, I guess that gets us nearer to endurance, so maybe that would have been a smarter play. So we could start like dredging Life from the Loam looking for lands, like Dark Depths, for example, or we could just try and draw into our elves and stuff like that. Right, they fetched, and now they've cast a Ponder. They did not shuffle their Ponder. Interesting. I think we're going to take a normal draw here. Veil of Summer. I don't hate that one. Play out our Windswept Heath. We can stop our opponent from hard casting a Grief this turn by using this Wasteland, which feels worthwhile to me. And then we're holding up an Endurance if we need it. We also have the Veil of Summer and the Plough. So we've got some tools to work with here. Right, so there is an NLC. There is a Dauthi Voidwalker. We should have cracked this in response. This is now going to go underneath the Dauthi Voidwalker. That was just an error from my part. Right, so crack this. I would like to get a basic Plains. Yeah, that play was really bad for us. Alright, let's Swords to Plowshares of this creature. We can Veil of Summer to protect this if we have to. We don't have to. The play was pretty awkward for us. Yes, I'll dredge the Loam this time. Let's pop our graveyard out. What do we want here? Let's Loam for Wasteland, Yavimaya. So we can get in our opponent or we can protect ourselves with a Veil. I think I'd rather just get in at our opponent and just curtail what they can actually deploy. And this is going to be a grindy one. But we've weathered the storm. Undercity Sewers. That gets wastelanded with the best of them. We will not dredge our Loam this turn. And we drew another one. Right, let's get Wasteland going. Let's blow that up. I'm holding open some things. We don't get to make this endurance yet, but that's fine. Because we have a Loam in hand, we probably don't want to dredge again, although it can give us more shots at something useful. If that's how we think our turn is going to be. A Reanimate on the Grief. I would like to Veil of Summer. I will not dredge as Loam this turn. Just draw a regular card. A Flagstones. Okay, so the Grief doesn't do anything, it's just a 3-2. Obviously that's still something, but... Are we dredging the Loam now? I don't think so. We're looking for plows and some big boys. Alright, this can make a big boy. So... Let me just go for it here. Alright, we're in. And I will take this Knight of the Reliquary. It's bigger than their guy. And it finds us a 20/20, which is pretty good. But not in the face of the Petty Theft, obviously. But our opponent has cast a Brainstorm since we saw those cards. We don't know how many of them are going to be in our opponent's deck. In our opponent's hand. Just a Petty Theft here. Drown in the Lock. Sure. We could have pitched this Endurance to stop that if we wanted to. But I don't think that's necessary. I will dredge it this turn. I found a Savannah. So I would like to get our Maze of Ith going. I'd also like to draw 3 cards with our friendly little Life from the Loam. So if we get this Maze of Ith in now, this keeps us healthy until we can find a way to close this game out. So we can just kind of power through a couple of 20/20s. But I don't think we're drawing the Loam next turn. We're just going to take a regular draw. Alright, you can Swamp Cycle. That's pretty good. Underground Sea. A Dauthi Voidwalker. Sure, that's acceptable. Are they going to make us go through the Maze of Ith clicks? They are. Okay. Alright. So we're definitely not dredging with this Dauthi Voidwalker in play. Windswept Heath. That's not really what we're after, is it? We need to play this Cradle of Growth or this Savannah if we want to cast our Endurance, which I think we do. So play this out and pass. We're going to take 3 damage this turn from the Dauthi Voidwalker. But our deck is full of good hits here. And it's way better to hit this one than it is the Dauthi Voidwalker, because if anything goes underneath the Dauthi Voidwalker, then they get to use it if we untap it. I don't think we're just playing out this endurance, although maybe we are supposed to. Yeah, I think it makes sense. We can at least start attacking back. It opens up the lines for more creatures so we can double block the grief. Right, let's just get rid of their graveyards so they can't get that Troll of Khazad-dûm back. Makes future Drown the Locks a lot worse. Right, deck, what are we doing here? We're not dredging. We're not drawing anything useful. That's what's happening here. Right, let's just get rid of their land. Let's keep that plan going. 3 mana. They're going to cast a Brazen Borrower. Well, we have a guy who doesn't care about Brazen Borrower because he's got reach, so that's quite nice. So we do need some help here. I think we're probably going to be Thespian stage copying our Maze of Ith next turn. I don't believe they're attacking with a Borrower here. Just these two guys. Just the friends. This also means that Dark Depths is going to be a much better draw for us because they don't have the Brazen Borrower in hand anymore. Surprised they played that when we have the Thespian stage kicking around. Right, so this copies the Maze of Ith, and that stymies their attack for a while. Double Maze of Ith. Fun times. We're not Dredge Loam. Oh, we're Dark Depths. I'll play that and pass. A Brainstorm. So we can double block the grief with a Marit Lage and an Endurance if we want to. So our opponent doesn't really have amazing attacks here. What's in our exile zone with a counter on it? A Wasteland. Okay, well they have to put this ability on the stack if they want it. Alright, that's not Wasteland. They're cracking that, shuffling the Brainstorm cards away. They can probably dismiss this Engineering Explosives. Ponder. I don't know how many more Brazen Borrowers they're going to have. I think maximum 1 more. I guess we could have looked when we had a look at their deck, couldn't we? I think it was just the 1 Borrower, actually. Alright, so this one comes a copy of this. We take no damage this turn, in theory. Keep the one with no counters on. Go to attacks. They got a Shoulder's Edict. They do have another Borrower. That's very annoying. Okay. They found the cards they needed there. And we just can't find plows or paths here. We're nearly halfway through our deck. Right, we won't be dredging, obviously. A Green Sun Zenith. What does that do for us? I don't think it helps at all. Let's have a look. Well, I don't think we have anything we can find here. If we get ourselves a Knight, we can double block the grief, but then we take 6 in the air. We don't have any creatures we can fetch that are 2 creatures. Yeah, I think we're just dead if our opponent attacks correctly, which isn't really where I want to be. Okay, let's see if make our opponent attack correctly. 1, 2, 3. It's going to get the Knight. It's only a 2/2 though. We just take out their mana source. Alright, all our opponent has to do is turn all their guys sideways and they win the game. Let's hope that they don't do that. But yeah. Oh, we did brick on land a bit this game, but... Oh, they have Drown the Lock as well. Alright. Yikes. So we've lost 2 rounds against Rescaminator when our deck is supposed to be like the thing that beats it reliably. Now, some of this is definitely going to be due to, like, you know, some draws being better than others and also not knowing how to play through. Like, we could have played the first game differently if we just held up the crop rotation. We might have been able to stop them getting the Atraxa, but if they had any interaction, then that wouldn't have worked. So, yeah, awkward. So, what are we now? We are 2-2. So, let's go to the final round and see if we can get a positive record. Right, this opening hand doesn't do anything. We need some starting green mana, I think. This hand is okay. We can do a turn 2 Knight. The Bojuka Bog is kind of awkward, but I think we need to keep it here. We're probably getting rid of the quick reflexes. And we need a land to pitch to our Mox Diamond. So then we go Yavimaya, Mox, pitch this Bojuka Bog. Maybe I'm not supposed to show the Bojuka Bog and I'm supposed to pitch the Wasteland. Alright. I'm glad we didn't do that then. Ponder was pitched to Force of Negation. So we could be looking at some sort of blue-white control deck. Like, usually Force of Negation main deck means some sort of control-y thing. I ponder, so our Wasteland's not going to get us anywhere, but we do get to cast a Knight of the Reliquary next turn. Now, will it get plowed? Probably. But we've got a plan. This feels like a matchup where I'd like to be on the blue-white control side of things. But I could be wrong. Alright, play this, and this for white mana. Let's get the Night Boat going. The Yavimaya means we get to sacrifice anything, so these Wastelands that are kind of not doing it for us get to turn into something more useful. A Brainstorm, okay. I think our opponent's probably digging for a force if they don't have one. They might just have a fetch land and some other cards that are a little bit less exciting they want to throw back. But if we find another land, we can try and find another Knight. We can also try and find a Gaddock Teeg, which might be useful here. We can take out our Yavimaya. Take out our Wasteland, that's interesting. A Maze of Ith. Would I like a Gaddock Teeg here? Or would I just... What do I want to do with our Knight of the Reliquary? I don't really want this Maze of Ith hanging around. I think we're going to hold on to the Knight for this turn and get Flagstones. Just so we can get some actual more resources going. What is this? A Life from a Loam. Our opponent is a Life from a Loam deck. That's interesting. We can't get this Bojuka Bog, but we can get an Echoing Deeps. Where is our Echoing Deeps? There it is. I'd like to have a Bojuka Bog, please. No Wastelands for you. So their spell doesn't do anything. Good. Alright. We can get another Knight if we want to. That does play into some removal a little bit. Attack. Let's crack this. I quite like a Plains, I think, here. We could just get Endurance and get rid of this Life from Loam if that's the thing our opponent is relying on. Yeah, I think we'll take that Loam out. And then we just got 9 power that can grow pretty quickly. A Leyline Binding, so probably losing our Knight of the Reliquary here. Seems a perfectly reasonable thing for our opponent to do. Wouldn't mind having access to Wasteland to take that Tundra out. Keep our opponent from developing further. Alright, Elvish Reclaimer is kind of like a mini Knight of the Reliquary. Now, are we playing this out? Are we holding it? I think we just need to play it out and try and get this game won. Like, we clearly collapsed something our opponent wanted to do in terms of that Life from the Loam. So hopefully we can just have a 2-turn clock here. Teferi Time Raveler. You're going to bounce our Reclaimer? Sure. I think we are finishing off the Teferi. So we'll attack Teferi. You're going to plow our guy. Alright, so we've got Dryad Arbor waiting in the wings to come and do some damage. And we've got a Reclaimer. So we've got 7 damage here. It's a little bit all in. Can certainly come undone via a Supreme Verdict. But I don't think giving our opponent the time of only having one of these creatures in play is going to be good enough. I guess we only need to attack for 6. We don't need to get the 7th point in here. But we'll see what our opponent does first. And Lorien Revealed. Do I care if I lose a Dryad Arbor? Not really. It's got an extra point damage, and that makes both of these lethal on their own. Right, we drew a blank. We need to hope that this squadron of little guys gets there. Right, so I need to remove our Endurance and our Reclaimer. Right, they've got a red source. We're going to see like a 4th Eorlingus. We are. Okay. So that's some damage. I imagine they're going to attack us for a little bit and get the Monarch and then hold the rest back on blocks. Yep. As expected. So we need a Sejiri Steppe would be good. A Crop Rotation also does it here. Actually, we've got Elvish Reclaimer. What am I talking about? We just go 1, 2. Let's Crop Rotate away this Bojuka Bog. Let's cast Sejiri Steppe. Give our guy pro-red. And then swing through. Alright, we got there. It was in front of us all along. Okay, so a control matchup. I would like an additional threat. I would also like a choke. We've seen Veils of Summer, so I would quite... sorry, not Veils of Summer. Leyline Bindings, so I think Force of Vigor is quite good for nailing those. So that's something I'm interested in. I don't think this is going to be a Maze of Ith matchup, so we can probably cut that. Karakas does tap for our colours, so it's not really one I like to remove. Stuff that protects our guys, pretty good. Crop rotations, maybe less good. Since we're going to be seeing some counter magic and stuff. How much do we want plows in this matchup? We don't know if they're playing Murktides. Maybe we trim on 1 plow and keep 1 more crop rotation in, and we just got 3 in there that we can find eventually. This is a matchup where Gaddock Teeg looks pretty good, stops leyline binding and stuff. So I think we're going to try it like this. We can always reappraise the situation if we have to. Alright, we have a turn 1 Elvish Reclaimer. That sounds like the place I want to be. Our opponent is probably like a 4-colour Beanstalk deck as well, because we saw the red source, we saw green sources, we saw the 4th Eorlingus, the leyline bindings. These are all hallmarks of that sort of deck. So what are we going to get rid of here? I think we'll play out the Savannah. So I'd like to have the option to channel a Boseiju later on. Whereas if we play this, our opponent can obviously Wasteland our Savannah. Alright, I think our opponent is going to source the Plowshares like Elvish Reclaimer. Sure. Not unexpected. Right, they didn't shuffle off their Ponder, so what are we doing now? We don't really have much of a game plan outside of Wasteland, but Wasteland is a good game plan. I'm going to attack our opponent's green sources because we've already seen Life from the Loam from our opponent. So if we can just keep saying no to green sources and stopping Life from the Loam, then I think that's a good way of playing this game. Right, there's a green source. I kind of want to hold up crop rotation here. But I also want to play this Reclaimer, which means we have to play the Boseiju, which is the card that I wanted. I guess we can crop rotate this Boseiju away. Worst case scenario, right? So that's probably fine. And it can be in our graveyard to pick up with the Loam. We'll Loam next turn, which is certainly worth killing for our opponent, or countering if they don't have any kill spells. But they let it resolve, which means they probably have a kill spell. Would you look at that? A Swords of Plowshares. A Brainstorm, sure. So next turn we're hoping to Life from the Loam, back this Wasteland and start getting them, but they have shown us that Force of Negation is a card that they play. So that is something for us to keep in mind. Can I Life from the Loam? Or is this going to be him to Turak? Force of Will. Well, that's not really what our opponent wanted to do there, is it? They're clearly fearful for their life with these Wastelands. Alright, Azander's Lounge. I suspect our opponent has access to some kind of endurance effect, or something like that. Some way of interacting with our graveyard. Oh, our opponent conceded from the game because they missed their land drop. Okay, so we finished with a 3-2 in the end there, and our 2 losses were to Blue-Black Rescaminator, which is the reason why this deck is supposed to be good. So let's talk about this deck. So one thing you'll notice from watching me play this deck is we had quite a lot of options a lot of the time, you know. So what lands are we fetching? What lands are we playing? Like the order we play out our lands is really important. What are we finding off of Green Sun? You know, what are we finding off of this? What are we finding off of this? Off of this? Even like what lands we get off of fetch lands is kind of can be quite a big deal in terms of you have to think ahead of like what you're sacrificing and things. So there are a lot of options in this deck, especially for a non-blue deck. And did I play the correct options all the time? No, definitely not. But I think that goes to show that this is a deck that you can't just pick up. You need to put in some reps with and get good with it. Like we went 3-2, which is, you know, we get our money back. It's not an embarrassing record. But I think the fact that we lost twice against the matchup we're supposed to be good against is what I really want to drill down into. So what we could have done differently is we could have held up a crop rotation instead of playing out the Elvish Reclaimer. So that's just going to be a case of learning that that's the sequence that works out best for you a lot of the time. On the play, we obviously play the Reclaimer. But on the draw, we maybe have to hold up the crop rotation, then we delay a turn. But then if they have any interaction like a Force, a Daze, or like a Grief, then that play doesn't work. So that's something to be aware of as well. I do think that, you know, the Blue-Black Rescaminator deck will just have hands that will beat through some of the stuff we're doing sometimes. Because the high quality of their hands, you know, when they're performing with all cylinders is really, really strong. So you're just going to have to grin and bear it sometimes. Now, was that what happened? I don't necessarily think so. I think we definitely got unlucky in 1 or 2 games. But we played, what, I think, was it 6 games against Rescaminator? Let's just check. Oh, no, okay, so we only played 4 games. We went 0-2 against Rescaminator both times. So we didn't even get a single game off the Rescaminator. That's kind of interesting. I'd like to hear anyone who does play this deck, their thoughts on that matchup and how they would play things differently, because clearly we're doing something wrong here. And, you know, I know from talking to people who do play this deck and who play the Blue-Black Rescaminator deck that this Green-White Depths deck is very good against them. I suppose having access to the Dark Depths combo is very good when they don't necessarily have the most ways of dealing with it. Although we did kind of get jammed up by our opponent drawing their second Borrower. So we can feel a little bit unlucky on that front. So I think there was definitely a couple of games we felt unlucky, but a couple of games where we just didn't play optimally. So I reckon if you were to sharpen up the play, maybe we get to some game 3s and maybe we get to turn it around then, because we're definitely going to be better post-board because we've got a bunch of graveyard hate and stuff. So that's definitely something to think about. This deck is very strong. I think it's very well positioned right now. When we played against someone in one of the earlier rounds, they did mention how they thought the deck was very good, and we sort of crushed them quite brutally with it, to be honest. But it is a deck that's going to require a lot of reps and understanding how things interlock in a matchup a bit more than I have the experience of with this particular deck. All right, I hope you enjoyed this one. This was a donation deck, and if you like a donation deck on the channel, just by all means give me a shout on Discord, in the comments, on my Patreon, whatever. If you'd like regular donation decks, you can do that by joining my upper tier on my Patreon, or you can just join the very lowest tier of just $2 a month to support, which will give you an entry into a raffle every month to see if you can get a free donation deck, because I give one away every month. Sometimes I give more away, like I gave more away for my birthday. I'll probably give more away when I hit 3k subs, which we're getting close to, so remember to subscribe. It really does help me out. With that said, pop a like on the video too, and thank you for watching, really. It's nice to play a Dark Depths deck that's a little bit different and uses some different brain muscles. Alright, thank you so much for joining me and watching this one, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.